Ravens Rundown coming up in just a few moments from right now. Before we do, though, I want to make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. This is the place to be for the Baltimore Ravens playoff run. We are going to cover this team like no one else is with daily Baltimore Ravens news and rumors segments as we count you down to the postseason. If you want to see the Ravens not only make the playoffs, but win some playoff games and march on down to the Super Bowl, sub for playoff dubs here on the Ravens Rundown. Hit that red sub button. You'll be glad you did. YouTube.com/RavensTV. Playoffs? Yes, we're talking playoffs here on today's show. Tyler Jones here with you. Appreciate you joining us as we look at the Baltimore Ravens playoff picture. The run to the playoffs is officially on with Week 11 in the books. Thanksgiving just a couple of days away, and now we set the scene for what's it going to take for the Baltimore Ravens to not only get to the postseason, but potentially get the number one seed. What do their Super Bowl odds look like? And who do you need to root against over the next few weeks? We'll explain all of that and more coming up here on today's show. Let's begin with the Ravens playoff outlook, where they stand right now. Record is 7-3, pretty solid. If you recall, at this point last year, the Ravens had the number one seed in the AFC, and we all know what happened after that. So, keeping it positive here, things look pretty good for this Ravens team on a win streak. Best win of the year by record is what they did against the New England Patriots. You could also add in that Bengals win was impressive as well to that mix. What they were able to do against New England 37-26. The Patriots are a playoff team right now. Next opponent is the Jacksonville Jaguars coming up this weekend. That game will take place on Sunday, November 27th. So, we went to the folks at 538, and Nate Silver and company, they do all the data analytics, and you see them prediction like elections and stuff like that. Well, they also ran through the numbers on the Baltimore Ravens, and their chances of making the playoffs, pretty dang good. Not quite 100%, but very close. 97% chance that we see the Baltimore Ravens in the postseason. So that's very good news. As far as winning the AFC North goes, really good number there. 87% chance to win the division. Remember, they beat the Bengals, so they have that one-game advantage right now, besides just in the division standings, but also that tiebreak over Cincinnati, something to think about there. Chances of getting the number one seed in the AFC, not so great, just a 10% chance, but a chance nonetheless. And then when it comes to the Super Bowl, 538 doesn't like the Ravens' chances when it comes to taking home the title. Just 6%, but you're saying there's a chance. It's not out of the question they could be Super Bowl champions, according to the analytics nerds, but there's where things necessarily stack up with the playoff predictor. And so, with that said, 97%. Are you feeling pretty confident about the Ravens making the postseason? I would scale that, if you had to put a number on it, 100% chance. I would up that. I would be shocked if the Ravens missed the playoffs at this point. What say you? What's your confidence level in Baltimore making the postseason at this point in time? Scale it for me 1 through 100. You might get an ad break. If so, take advantage of it. Get your votes in. Put a number on it, your confidence level in Baltimore making the postseason at this point in time. Let's look at the AFC now, where the playoff picture stacks up. The Kansas City Chiefs are the number one overall seed if the playoffs were to begin today with an 8-2 record, followed by the Miami Dolphins, who sit at 7-3 with that number 2 seed. And the Ravens, Titans, and Dolphins all have the same record, but based on the tiebreaker scenarios right now, the Ravens find themselves on the bottom end of that, getting stuck at the 4 seed as opposed to being the 2 seed. Remember, they've already lost to Miami. The wild card race, Buffalo was the Super Bowl favorites, and they find themselves at that number 5 spot right now. Certainly, they'll be still in the conversation for that number 1 seed, despite them being a wild card team right now. And then New England and Cincinnati are those 2 other wild card spots right now. The Jets, not out of it at 6-4. They've certainly impressed this year. Don't forget about the Chargers, too. The Chargers are very talented, one of the most talented teams in the conference, but they've dealt with a handful of injuries. Beyond that, everyone is pretty much done at that point with 3-7 records or worse. So, who are the teams you need to root against? Well, it starts with the Cincinnati Bengals. And I know that the odds are really good for the Ravens when it comes to winning the division, but first and foremost, that's your first order of business. The number one seed, all those things are nice, but your number one job is to get the division title first, and so you don't have to need the Bengals to lose out. You don't necessarily need the help right now, but it doesn't hurt you if the Bengals are losing football games. So, yes, the Ravens control their own destiny in the division, but even with that said, you'll take all the help you can get. Priority number one, rooting against the Bengals, which isn't very hard for Ravens fans to do. Number two, the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I know that the Chiefs have a big advantage on everybody else right now when it comes to that number one seed, that they have that one-game lead at this point, and they have some tiebreakers over some of the other teams involved here. But think about this. Do you really want Patrick Mahomes at home in an AFC championship game again? What's it been, like 4 years in a row now where the Chiefs have hosted the AFC title game? If the Chiefs started to lose some games, and if you could get a matchup against Kansas City at home as opposed to going to Kansas City, that would make things a whole lot better potentially. So, rooting for the Chiefs to lose. They'll be in the playoffs, but if they could fall out of that one seed, that would certainly go a long way. The number 3 team, I know that they're not a top 4 team right now, but the Buffalo Bills. Folks, remember, this was the most talented team to begin the season. They were the Super Bowl favorites entering 2022. Just because they're 7-3 does not mean they are going anywhere. They're still right in the thick of things. Same record as the Ravens. They have a tiebreaker over the Ravens. Winning that head-to-head matchup, they very well could still be the number 1 seed when it's all said and done. It'd be nice not to have to play in Buffalo in January. Need to be rooting against the Bills. The Dolphins, same thing like we said with Buffalo. They have a tiebreaker over the Ravens right now. Need them to lose some football games to help out the seed chances for the Ravens to potentially move up. The Dolphins could be in their way with that tiebreaker. And then there's the Tennessee Titans sitting at 7-3. Titans have played a lot better football as of late. That would be a team that you also should be rooting against. Those are the 5 I would focus on to root against. Besides cheering on your Ravens, sometimes almost rooting against teams is almost just as fun. So those 5 teams is who I would keep in mind for that there to potentially help out the Ravens in their road to the playoffs. More to come here on the Ravens Rundown. Before we do, today's show is presented by BetUS. BetUS, the exclusive sportsbook partner of Chat Sports, is offering a 125% deposit bonus. You put $100 down to get $125 to spend for free at chatsports.com/bet. Use the promo code CHAT125. Odds for the AFC North. We mentioned the Ravens with a 1-game lead. Between them and the Bengals at this point in time, it's really just down to those two. And BetUS really likes this Bengals team a lot more than really likes the Ravens a lot more than the Bengals when it comes to the AFC North race at this point. The Ravens at -500, the Bengals at +375, the Browns at +3,000, and the Steelers at +4,000. Are you putting your money in on the Ravens? Are they going to get it done and win the division? If you think they will, type Y for yes. If you don't think it's going to happen for some reason of sorts, let us know in the comment section. Type N for no. Y for yes, N for no if you think the Ravens will win the AFC North. So let's break down the rest of the Ravens' schedule for 2022. And the number that you see on the side there, that's from FiveThirtyEight, the percentage chance they give the Ravens of winning their remaining matchups here. Starting with the Jags, about a 65% chance to win that game on the road against Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence having a much better year this year. Travis Etienne's been running the football. Not a guarantee to get that win, but should be able to take care of business, you would think. Then you begin the month of December taking on the Denver Broncos. Before the year, this looked like it could be a marquee matchup, but the Broncos have been one of the biggest disappointments in the league this year that the folks at FiveThirtyEight give the Ravens an 80% chance to win that game. Then you have a matchup with the Pittsburgh Steelers. That game on the road in Pittsburgh, about a 71% chance to get things done. But we've seen this is one of the best rivalries in the NFL, and it doesn't necessarily matter what the records are. You're going to get your best effort from both the Ravens and the Steelers. That should be still a very interesting game there, and the Steelers have still pulled off a couple of upsets throughout the year. Then you face the Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson for the very first time as a member of the Browns. Ravens given about a 50% chance to win that game in Cleveland. And then you close out the year. You get the Atlanta Falcons on Christmas Eve, 81% chance to beat the Falcons. New Year's Day, you get the Pittsburgh Steelers for a second time. That game at home, and the odds go way up to 81%. And then you finish out the regular season against the Cincinnati Bengals on the road, and that is the only game of 538's projections where they do not have the Ravens favored. Now, something to think of when you look at that Cincinnati game here, there's a few factors that could be involved. The Ravens could be at a point where they're resting starters in that game. The Bengals are probably still fighting just to even make the playoffs at that point, or at least for seed-wise. So I would say don't get too upset about necessarily being an underdog in that game just because of the other factors involved. We don't even know if we'll see the starters by that point. So with that, 538 is saying, look, the Ravens are going to be favored in almost every game except the last one, and gives them a projection of about 13-4 to finish the season. And this win streak that they're on right now continues all the way through January, which would just be terrific if the Ravens can pull that off. If you finish 13-4 to win the year, I think you are overjoyed, and you have a decent shot to end up as that number one seed in the AFC if all things work out that way. Going to need some help from Kansas City to lose some games there, but 13-4, I think you'd gladly take that to finish out 2022 before the playoffs. Before we go, predict the Ravens' final record. 13-4, do you think that's going to happen? Or will it be a little more, a little less? Let me know in the comments section what your final record prediction is for the Ravens to close out the 2022 campaign. We'll see you next time here on Ravens Rundown.